So today we will be speaking about fiat money, right? Fiat money. FIAT money. Now, show of hands, how many of you all have heard of the term fiat money? Okay, if you don't feel embarrassed, right? Reason being, you may have never heard of the term itself, but you have encountered fiat money probably this morning, probably this afternoon, or probably right now. Hmm, I see where you're going with this. Okay, so fiat money is basically the dollars in your pocket, right? The money in your piggy bank, the money in your cash register, even, right? It's all considered fiat money. The money that the US has is more so fiat money, right? Why is that? It has no serious backing, let's just say, right? In other words, they produce it out of thin air, out of paper, right? And that's why they refer to it as fiat money because nothing backs it, right? So back in the day, money would be backed by gold or certain notes or whatever the currency was at that particular point in time. It was backed by gold, right? This is where you had the gold standard that certain countries operated, etc. But in 2026, you could print money out of thin air. $2 billion could be printed out of thin air if need be. And that's because it's fiat money. It's not backed by anything. It's just backed by the good word of the US, essentially. But I want to tap into a book that I read before, right? And I'll go into a little something here. Okay, so fiat money is paper money without precious metal backing, in which people are required by law to accept. It allows politicians to increase spending without raising taxes. So first, when you say, or when you hear rather, required by law, right? That's essentially saying that the law, the government, they have to accept this money, right? Now, granted, we could get into the specifics or the politics on why that is and why that isn't, but again, by law, it has to be accepted, right? Albeit it's not backed by precious metals being gold, silver, copper, etc. Those are all considered precious metals, and all of those precious metals essentially represent value, right? Reason being, it's tangible for one, and secondly, these precious metals go back to what? The beginning of time, right? So thus we know it'll always be around, and thus people could depend on a precious metal well before they could depend on a nothing, right? A quote unquote nothing, a nothing burger, right? Think about Jerome Powell. But yes, so let's get back to the book. Okay, so fiat money is the cause of inflation, and the amount which people lose in purchasing power is exactly the amount which was taken from them and transferred to their government by this process. Damn, that was a lot there. Okay. Inflation, therefore, is a hidden tax. Hmm. This tax is the most unfair of all because it falls most heavily on those who are least able to pay, aka those in the gutter, those and the not upper class, not middle class, but the bottom of the totem pole, beloved, right? Those in poverty stricken environments. I digress. Okay, the small wage earner and those on fixed incomes, right? In other words, people that are making minimum wage and below, right? This is who these this is who the hidden tax, also known as inflation, it falls on them because they don't have the slightest idea what's going on a from a capitalistic standpoint, right? Through economics. Okay. It also punishes the thrifty by eroding the value of their savings. In other words, I tell people all the time, stop saving every dollar because inflation will tear into it. It will eat away at it, right? Your purchasing power shrinks, it decreases due to the hidden tax called what? Inflation, right? And also bear in mind, your savings is fiat money to begin with, beloved. This creates resentment among the people, leading always to political unrest and national disunity. Therefore, a nation that resorts to the use of fiat money has doomed itself to economic hardship and political disunity. Does that not sound like America? Listen, man. If you're going to deal with the dollar, aka fiat money, at least be smart and get you some equity, right? Via the stock market, via the real estate market, via crypto. Diversify your assets, beloved. Don't let inflation eat away at your purchasing power. If that money is not moving, that money is losing its worth. Heavy on investments.